Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Tech Talk Tuesday. My name is Rick Smith, and I am your host. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help grow and run your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or a more established business leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Now, let me bring in my co-host, someone you all are familiar with, Chicago's own, Mr. Paco Lebron. How are you, sir?
Boy, Mr. Rick, I'm doing fine on this Fold Tuesday morning. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I wish I was doing as good as you are, but I'll get there. But everything's going good.
Things are well, my friend. I got the grill heating up in the back, just mowed the lawn, and about to go ahead and enjoy a nice little good day as we go today, as we start off the work week.
Sounds good. Now, before we dive into today's topic, we need to give our little public service announcement and talk about something Paco and I haven't been on camera together in a while. So we need to talk about our favorite topic here. What is that, Mr. Paco?
Oh, that's got to be Negocios Now's Who's Gala on July 27th. Oh, in Chicago. Oh, no, you must be talking about
what he said.
TechCon Unplugged.
Yes, sir. TechCon Unplugged. Now, TechCon Unplugged is September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Yes, folks, it is in New Jersey. We look forward to seeing you there. TechCon Unplugged is our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. At there, you will learn from like-minded business owners and panels and breakout sessions, gain key takeaways from partners and vendors in the community. And my absolute favorite part of this is you get to experience those one-on-one or spontaneous group conversations where great friendships are built, relationships are cultivated, and ideas are exchanged. Now, tickets are on sale now at techconunplugged.com. We are coming towards the end of our ticket sale, so we do encourage you to get on and get your tickets if you can. If you are a member of the community, the MSP Unplugged community, reach out to us for a discount code that will be available to you. Now, Paco, I'm looking forward to this. How about you?
I mean, it ain't coming soon enough. I'll tell you that much. No, I think I think we've done a disservice to the people and not really mentioning on what's going on at this event. I think that we're going to have some of those updates here coming up soon with some of the great agenda items. We're going to have a lot of Microsoft 365 content on there, how to improve your security, how to improve your posture and productivity. We're going to have some who's who of names to kind of guide us on either operational or security basis as well. So it's going to be a little bit of everything for anybody. So we'll go ahead and we're going to make sure we get that agenda updated here as soon as possible. And you may even see a promo video here coming up soon as well. So get you hyped up for the next 2 months. Can you believe it? It's 2 months away. So it's going to be a good time over in New Jersey. And I don't care what anybody says. New Jersey is the place to be.
Hey, that's my neck of the woods. But hey, I will say this, though, along with the great content, the great learners, the great friendships, we will do a little party and have a little celebrations every now and then. So to keep us all, in that festive mood. We traditionally have had our Saturday evening social. We're also going to have a Thursday evening icebreaker, just get to know each other. A little thing we'll do on Friday for everyone that just, get to know each other and have it, give you some free time, but also do a couple of things for people there. So we are definitely looking forward to this. Again, I encourage you to go out, techconunplugged.com, get your tickets while they're still available. Now, Paco, you and I haven't been on, it seems like forever that we haven't been on camera for a long time. But we always come up with topics of things that are going on in our businesses or things we've experienced or things someone has come to us with questions or concerns about, and we turn those into topics. Mm-hmm. Today's topic is something you and I have been talking about a lot recently, and I think more so me, and that is making changes to our stack. It's not only what you change, but it's when you change those things and how you evaluate about making those changes. What makes you make a change? When should you make that change? And how do you introduce it? So with that in mind, Paco, I'll let you start. I have, I've come to you with some questions about this week, the past couple of weeks, actually. And, we have a strategy here we've developed, and I'm just curious in how you guys approach it at ProdigyTeks.
I do whatever John tells me to do. No, no. So, I mean, I think that there's a couple. So it goes back to understanding what a stack is. And for those that are new into the industry and maybe you're tuning in and you don't really know, but you've heard this term used around, stack is basically you getting a group of tools or X amount of tools that you would essentially stack up to have for your offering. So for us, we have we have 3 offerings. We have what's called a Protective Essentials Plus, and Protective Essentials Plus and Compliance. So that's kind of how that all goes through those 3 individual services, and we model our plans toward a particular security framework. In this case, we use the CIS version 8, so that's what we apply our plans to. So IG1 is our essentials, IG2 is our essentials plus, IG3 is essentials plus compliance. So that's essentially how that all rolls out. Again, IG simply just means implementation group. And so that's how we adhere our stack or our tool stack to these individual groups. Now, because of these 18 controls, we tried to go ahead and apply, all right, what tool can check the box off of this? And so that's how we kind of determine our security stack / our tool stack to make sure as we operate our business. But all in all, as you kind of are looking at all this, you really have to focus on what you're going to have as a core component, and then you build off of that. Because if you don't have a core component and you go ahead and pick a tool here, pick a tool there, yeah, it checks the box, but it's a lot of management. So if you have the ability of picking a core, and what I mean by a core is you have, as you have your cog on your wheel and everything kind of goes around it, you want to make sure that it integrates, it's manageable, you can get good reporting off of it, and that's how you kind of piece all these things together. So that's how we kind of do it over here, especially coming from the PAX 8 Beyond conference a couple weeks ago. There were 86 vendors there, and my team felt it was funny to register for all 86 so they can get the swag. So, plenty of tool makers have been calling us all over the past week, but it's important to understand where you have your cog, where your core is, to know who you're going to go with as you move forward on offering your stack or your service.
Okay. Now, I wanted to talk about 2 things with this.
Mm-hmm.
One is you talk about finding a framework, whether that's NIST, whether that's CIS, whatever it may be that you follow, and I think that makes perfectly logical sense, because then you have a model of what you're trying to hit, or what you're making sure that your quote unquote stack covers, right?
Yeah.
Now, the second part of that is having that core that you work from, as you say, that everything else feeds into and feeds out of, that helps you do this. Now, the last part about this is making the decisions on what products you use, right? There's that evaluation period, I guess, of, again, 86 vendors. I'm sure of those 86 vendors, you only need maybe 10, if that many. And from that 10, because those other 86, they duplicate each other, right? So you have to make an evaluation, decide what you choose. So I have an answer for this, but I was going to ask you first. How do you make that determination
of what tool goes to what? Or
right? No, not necessarily. Not where it fits, but which one you're going to use.
So what's the best way for me to vet a vendor to understand if they're going to come into my tool stack or not?
Correct.
Okay.
But
so,
said.
No. I just want to make sure I answered your question correctly. I mean, I think that there's a couple things that come into play. I love doing business with people. And so if I have a relationship with someone and they are doing a good job, I normally will try to do business with them on that tool. Perfect case in point, we're a synchro shop. There's a lot of synchro shops that are out there. But we hold true to that PSA and RMM. I mean, we do everything in it, and we make it work. We try to do what we can. We fix the automations. We try to improve in that system day by day, because there's so much you can do in it. And they have a ton of changes and updates that are coming on a monthly basis that are true quality of life improvements. So if it's been a while since you've taken a look at it, definitely check it out. But because that really is our one of our core things that we're using, everything has to integrate with Synchro. Like that's just it. If you don't integrate with Synchro, we're not going to look at it. So all of our vendors have either integrated inside of Synchro in some way, or on a tool stack aspect of it, anything that's inside of Microsoft, that's what we have as our core as well. So productivity and security, we kind of have those two, which they're starting to blend more and more as our conversations have had over the last couple of weeks. We're starting to dive more and more into Microsoft in all of their things with Business Premium. And so we have the ability of really trying to focus on that aspect of it, and really knowing that if it doesn't integrate in one of those two avenues, then there's no way that it's really going to prove to having us be productive and just the ability of doing business with them. So that's one. Two, people, as I mentioned before. And then three is, how is it going to save me time? How is it going to save me money? And how is it going to help me improve services? That's really the biggest piece for us to really truly do that as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I know we go through this process now where I've implemented this because we go to shows or we see something online, we sign up for a demo. And this is not a knock on vendors, because vendors have a job to do just like we do. And salespeople for vendors have a job to do. So when you go to a show, your name and your phone number and contact information are going to be given to basically all the vendors or some of the vendors. And then there's some you drop your card to, or they scan your badge. However they get your information, and they're going to call, which is their job, right? Just as we were MSP and we held some kind of event, and we collected business cards or business information from potential customers, we would call them to try to get their business. So that is that is part of the business. Now, I know it can get frustrating. You get a lot of phone calls during the day. So one of the things we've implemented is twofold. One is exactly like what you said, Paco. We asked the question, hey, we use Synchro. Do you guys in some way or shape or form are able to get information either into or out of Synchro for us to do business with you, right? That's one. And two, we've implemented now a time frame, which I want to talk about a little later. But when we've over the years of doing this, I've made plenty of changes. Some have been shiny new object changes that they may necessarily need to have been done at the time, or changes out of frustration with products, or certain things don't work. But now, because of that, and it was so much easier to do when I was by myself, right? Because if it's something new, I just go learn it, teach myself, change it, and then go on, right? And then use that. Now with staff, with techs who have to use these things as well, it's not so easy to just it should not be so easy to just go and make these changes and say, hey, I'm just going to jump from product A to product B. They do the same thing, but I like this one better. So what we've done now is we implement a time frame. So I tell every vendor who calls, hey, we use Synchro. That's not likely to change unless something dramatic happens. So does your product, and again, you have to know what they do and whether it needs to implement with Synchro, but does it implement with Synchro? Some will say, oh, it's on the way, or some will say yes, or some will say no, right? The other thing I say to everyone now is, hey, I'm just going to be upfront with you. We don't make changes anymore during the year unless it's an emergency. So we're not going to be evaluating new products until the fourth quarter. So if you really want to speak to us, give us a demo, let us learn anything, you should be contacting us in the fourth quarter. And then we'll be making those decisions, because what I really want to implement, because it's like I say, it's important for us as a company, and particularly for the people who work here, is not having this turnover, and they don't have time to basically learn the new process or learn whatever else is new. So we're not going to do that until we evaluate our quote unquote evaluate our stack against again whatever the principles we're using to create that stack. We're not going to do that until the fourth quarter, right? And then we'll make a decision, try to get it. I'm shooting for November 15th, where we know exactly what the 2024 stack is going to be. So then we can get that stack, get those pricings and all those things out to customers to let them know, hey, here your price is going up. Here's the changes. Sometimes we don't necessarily need to do that if it falls in the same price category and there's no significant change. We don't necessarily say, hey, we're switching from backup A to backup B, because the customer doesn't really care. They just want to know they're being backed up, right? So we don't necessarily have to tell them, but we want to give ourselves 30, 45 days is ideal to have that decision made of what we're going to do going into the next year. And then we'll take that time to learn, work with that new stack, basically to get it for us to get familiar with it. So when we implement it out to other customers, to our customers, that we're familiar with the process, familiar with how it works, and know everything is going where it's supposed to go. I don't know if that makes sense, but so that's just been the thing we've been doing, and I've been trying to be like respectful of vendors, but I'm upfront with them now and tell them, hey, we're not going to be making any choices, doing any demos, any evaluations until the fourth quarter.
Right. I mean, no, and I do exactly what you say, but I kind of take it a step further, where if I tell them I don't like them, I don't like them. And it's to a point where, I'll tell them, like, there was a vendor that I saw at PAX 8 that I have not heard from, that had been very quiet and not responsive. And so we left them about a couple years ago. And, they kind of came to us and said, hey, you should look at us and whatever. I was like, yeah, I'd rather not. And they were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, no, we tried. Like, oh, well, a lot has changed in 2 years. I was like, you should have been more caring when you were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I get it every time, vendors have the ability to change and they're trying to win that business back. I hold grudges. So it's one of those where so like you're going to have to give me a really good deal in order to do so. And then there are vendors that I've done business with that had screwed me completely. And I wouldn't just, on the mere fact of branding, I just won't do business with them as well, no matter how cool the new tool will have or whatever the case may be. But, I think the biggest piece of this is that going back to the relationship is that you want to know someone that you're having a good relationship with. You don't want to you're not switching for, oh, this one's cheaper by $20 an endpoint, right, or, this one is cheaper because I can get a more group rate. So we did that one year when we put everything all in one place, and it was a total disaster that year because we were chasing down false alerts and doing more work to set it up, let alone to troubleshoot the things that it caught. And so we went back and went to all our additional tools. But, I think it's a big understanding is that, you're not switching to just for the fact of switching because you're saving a buck here. You got to take into consideration the implementation time that you can be billing for and protecting your clients, because in a transition, you may miss that you didn't transition the client into another tool. And if they got, in whatever reason, got popped, that's a whole big other issue on itself. The other piece to it too is that we always do it every year where we evaluate our vendors, not for new vendors to come in, but also to validate and verify, hey, is this the correct pricing? Can we get better pricing? We're at this many endpoints now. Is there a way for us to get a little bit more? Do you have any new offerings that make sense for us? And so we try to do a lot of that as we kind of move forward and evaluating what we have in currently. Now, what I will say, and it's a big issue for those that change over stacks, is that sometimes you go halfway and then you get distracted and you didn't finish the rest of the transition. So you're like, I'll just, pay the bill until then. Sometimes you're paying for two of the same vendors, maybe three of the same vendors, and you got to make the time to pull it out because you're just bleeding cash flow for no good reason. Mm-hmm. Like right now, we're switching we're switching spam filtering twice So we went from one vendor to another to now going all in on Microsoft Defender under Office 365 Defend. And so, but we're still paying those two bills because we're transitioning from them. And unfortunately, there's some other things that are delaying us in order to do so. Now, was that the smartest thing to do? No. But I think it was one of those where you have to be conscious of that because that's resources that could be dedicated to elsewhere that you may be having to bill for and that you're not getting the upside on.
Right. And then you get that, the other thing on that, you get that stack sprawl where you, like you say,
Right.
you're paying for tools you don't need or paying for tools you don't use.
Right.
Now, one of the things we're trying to do here with that is everything goes through us first, meaning the first full transition of everything where we're going to make changes has to happen at Renactus first, right?
Mm-hmm.
We eat our own dog food. So the same stack we offer to our clients, we're offering to ourselves. There's a few exceptions here and there for that, of course, but we are going to make the same transition here first. And that's how we evaluate how it works, right? And then that also gives us a way if people if you set up processes and procedures or whatever, if you write out whatever, we can do that based on our experience here first. And then, then it'll make it a little easier to make that transition. Because one of the things that happens is, particularly if you have a lot of clients, it is not easy. And people think for some reason that it's just not easy to just say, okay, I'm going to delete all of my users on this vendor and put them all here now. It just
Right.
doesn't work that way. And, so it has to be a planning stage for that. I think for us, we'll use, again, like I said, we'll use the fourth quarter to make those changes. So that come January 1st, when we start a new year, everyone's already up and running, and we're not spending the first week or first 2 weeks of January or first month of January making that transition. Because at that point, we know what we want, or we know what works, what doesn't work, what we want to do. And each year, what we're doing is we're learning more and more. As we mature, we learn more and more, not only what we need, but what we don't need. And you and I've had this conversation a lot because you get on me a lot about having, or using a different product for different things that we could make a few tweaks on the current product and it'll get us what we want. I like simple, but sometimes simple costs you as well. So, that's just the process we're on now. Is I'm trying to be a lot more efficient. And I guess that's the gist of it, is efficiency, because that's really what saves you money and time.
Right. I mean, I think there's a big piece of being proficient and doing things right. And then I think there's a part where, you know, everyone is implementing tools of where they would like to be, but they haven't set up the processes and foundation that they need to be. And so, you know, for example, like we had no business in getting into a documentation platform because our documentation was just trash and we didn't have the process of building that documentation platform. So what did we do? We ended up updating everything and created a process of, all right, secure credentials go here, documentation and walkthroughs go here. And now we have this ability of, all right, we have our documentation set, we're building it, we're going through it, we're going from there. And then now we can invest in a documentation platform and automate that and make it easy and searchable and things of that nature. Like now that's where a lot of that goes through. But if you don't have your standardization and you don't have your processes in place, it's going to be a big pain in the butt for you. And so, and trust me, I'm a big issue with this where we were just going through a tenant the other day and realized that some of the partner roles weren't removed. And that was a step off of our process that we had missed. So we had to make sure that we re-added that. And then we also tied some automation to that. So now every time we create a ticket inside of Synchro, that's an onboarding ticket, there are, I think, 5 worksheets that are defaulted and come up as required. So unless those are checked and signed off by someone, and there's a quality assurance that means that we take care of that and sign it off, the onboarding is not complete. And now we're able to actually standardize and make sure the experience is repeatable because we've had that standardized process moving forward. So without those two, your tools and anything you're trying to invest in are going to be useless if you don't know how you're going to use them in the long run.
Right. And it's funny. We did it exactly the opposite way. And that is, I use the documentation tool. Like I said, we started with us. So I use the documentation tool
Mm,
to to basically put in our processes, how we do things here, right?
mm,
Everything was done in the documentation tool, and then that in turn fed what we used, how we used it. And of course, there has to be tweaks in between there, right? As you find that you thought that you wanted to do, you thought that step 3 should come before step 4 or whatever, and you realize that it shouldn't be that way, or you don't necessarily need this, or you need to add this. But we created I think we put I guess you said some people do it. I forget the words you use, but they uh, are put where they want to be as opposed to where they are. So
Oh,
we
they want to buy tools that of what where they should be or what they would like to be instead of focusing on where they need to be before they can jump into those type.
right, and we did it we basically took the the stance of, okay, if we were ideal and everything was working correctly, this is how we
Mm-hmm.
would do it, right? So we wrote all of those out, and
Mm-hmm.
now we build going towards that. We're
Yeah.
not all the way there yet, but we built. So basically, we did it backwards to basically create the model, and now we're trying to put the furniture in the model. Basically, now fulfill the model.
Now, the reason why I say it the way that I say it is because you're investing in these tools. So now, how many months have you gone in through paying these tools that you didn't get the full ability of using it because that process wasn't developed yet, right? And sometimes
Right.
people will just jump stuff in there and they're like, well, this is a crap piece of tool. I'm not going to use it anymore. Well, you didn't know what to do with it when you first got it. You got
Mhm.
enamored with the shiny bells and whistles and how it's going to help you and whatever, but you didn't have the discipline to go ahead and follow the process and fundamentals to make it work for you. I mean, it's the same thing like with everybody who complains about other tools that they don't use. Whether it's a PSA that they don't know how to use, or that, oh, it's not meant for me or whatever. Like, there was no effort to figure out how to make it work, right? And there are times where tools can't do what you want it to do. Totally understand that scenario and edge case. Not going to knock it. But if you're upset because a button over here doesn't do something, and then on another platform I had it all set up and ready to go, and because the two don't have, that's what you're complaining about, because you decided to invest in this more
Right.
better tool because they had a better process in figuring out, but you're used to something else and you're mad about it. It's just you didn't have your fundamentals. If you got your fundamentals, it's a phrase that actually we'll dive into that a little bit later, but it's a phrase that where if you don't focus on the discipline that you're trying to take care of, you're going to get wavered, distracted, and you're going to do whatever it is. Perfect example is like the agent, like we had talked about before, where right now we're starting to get everybody to start using the agent from the taskbar so that they can submit a ticket and kind of go from there instead of using the email and calling in, hopefully to eliminate a lot of the information gathering, a little bit better of ticket sprawl. We know who's assigned to what, and versus investing in another software that has this souped up trade agent and manager and user documentation and KBs and all that stuff. It's like, well, do you have the time to do it? Have you been doing it? And are you going to find a big benefit of it, or did you just not only add another cost to your cost center, but also the time that it's going to take you to implement? And now you've gone through, let's say, a whole year, and you didn't take a look at it. So now you've got lost time, lost revenue because the fundamentals weren't there. So I mean,
Right.
I think that's what I mean, but it's not to say it for just you, but it's, I think everyone goes through this, right? And it's a big problem. I think we're still in this phase, and this is kind of why we started doing this, is because, and I'm doing this MSP Unplugged, formerly the Computer Repair Podcast, was there were people in the industry that said, hey, if you bought this pack of $1,000 tools, you will be successful. And people who were not disciplined and had the fundamentals failed every single time, and they went out of business. They went back to the workforce. They had to file for bankruptcy. They had to borrow money. They had caused problems, trying to get this going, and it wasn't the right way. They were not taught. They were not shown. that the disciplines and the fundamentals are what's key in the beginning to then escalate and move forward. And I often, suffer from this as well, because I would love to be where this other company is at. I was talking to one of my what you would say competitors, but colleague of mine in Chicago, we were having a great conversation. We just met in PAX 8. Beyond, he's doing well over 20 to 24 million in revenue. And I mean, he's blowing up. You see his billboards all over the place, and like, that's awesome. That's cool. I want to do that, but I'm nowhere near the revenue size of him making those decisions and processes and disciplines. That's a whole different mindset that either A, I have not gotten to yet, or B, I'm on my way to get to.
Right.
So you can't be mad at someone else's yard that it's a little bit greener than yours because they had someone out landscaping and taking care of it and had the help, where you're trying to figure it out with a garden hose and a little spatula to try and get the seeds in. So there's difference in there's different ways to play this game, and there's different levels to this, but you should not ever be ashamed on the level that you're at. And you should never have to get something so that you feel like you belong, or that you can compete, or that you can be viewed at this certain level. I think that that's the biggest piece that you really want to try and focus on, because without that, you're really going to lose a lot of that fundamentals and standardization that you should have developed on, and you're going to get just a shaky foundation.
Right. And I agree with that. And that's something I definitely learned from you. You emphasize that a lot. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't need, particularly if you're starting, or no matter where you are, right? You should only use or have what you're using at the moment, right? You can always aspire to get, you get your, hate to use the word stack, but you get your core down. This is what you use because this is what you need to run. And then as you start expanding again, you get from, $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million. Of course, your needs will change because you're coming from a different perspective then, right? You have more people, you have to service more customers, whatever the reason is that you've grown from, $500,000 to $4 million or whatever, you've expanded, right? So your processes expand then, and then you start adding. But one of the things I learned from you is, we talked about this a lot, and I finally put it in action about a year ago, is not necessarily always, not necessarily always having to have everything in the beginning. Build to it as you need it. Like you use the example with Synchro. I know, and you and I have had this conversation a lot, is having your Synchro has a bunch of things in it that we don't necessarily use, right? Or we go get it from from other places, and we can we can actually get it from there. It may not be as smooth or as easy as it has been in the, as it may be with product B, but it's there. So until you really have a business case for it, it's not necessarily a need. And then I think there's not, it's a want and not a need. And I think the same way, everything in the business, we should be doing it on a need and necessarily not on a want, because you want to be a $24 million MSP, so you want to build yourself like that, but you don't need to do that when you have 10 customers or 20 customers, right? You're not there yet. So you build as necessary. So that's one of those things where I went through after numerous bashing over the head I got from you about this, is going through and realizing, okay, hey, we haven't used this for 3 months. We've been paying for this for 6 months. I really want to use it, but the past 6 months we haven't used it, which tells me now I don't need to use it, right? So, and that's the thing we've learned. We've gone through that, separating our needs from our wants. The business focuses on the needs, and it's not just about the money you save, but it is a significant amount of money, but it's not necessarily, but it's the efficiency you get as well, right? It's the proficiency you get, is that I don't have to focus on 10 things. I can focus on the 7 things that I need in my business that are working for me, to help me get right now what services my clients best. So that's just the struggle we have to go through. And I think it takes a lot of discipline as an MSP for us to get to that point.
And then one thing I want to add on to, and you made a very good point, is tools that we want to use, right? I think we get stuck in the point of, man, that looks super cool. That's going to do this for our clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our clients don't give a damn about what that thing does or what it looks like or whatever. Case in point, I go back to the tray agent that we have for Synchro. It does what it needs to do. It allows them to submit a ticket. It allows them to chat with us if we have that enabled. They can access their portal if they need to pay their invoice or look at any tickets that they have. And you can enable it to run any little scripts that you want to do as well. Other than those 4 items, and you could overpower this with more stuff if you chose to. But my whole point is, other than those 4 things that are critical and essential for them to communicate with you as a vendor and as a partner, what else is there, right? Yes, it's going to look prettier. Yes, it will look whatever. We love it. We look great. Same thing what we're using for as our cloud firewall. You know, I think it's great. It's got this device security posture. It has the ability to do all the things that I want it to do. All they want to know is that they can connect to a public Wi-Fi and not worry about it. That's all they care about. They want to be able to do what they're doing because they love what they do, or they're doing it because they know they're good at it. They have no cares about what it's doing, what's this technology, how like the Surface 5 laptop is like the greatest, that it can be repairable. You can peel it off, you can upgrade it. They don't give a damn about any of that. All they care about is how do you help them build their business. And I'm going to tell you the one line that John Dubinsky taught me that has closed me more deals by this one line than anything else that I have ever said. Rick, if I told you that our business is for our clients is not to protect them, which we already know that we should not be saying we protect them from cybersecurity and other threats. We can say we help mitigate their risk, but what the heck does that even mean? Cyber insurance companies are saying that, you know, if they don't know what you're doing, shout out to DataStream, you know, if they don't know what you're doing specifically and you're not partnering with them, understanding what they do, you know, that's going to be hard for to prove how you mitigate their risk, right? The one thing that has been told that I say to all of my clients, my job is not technology. My job is not about the cybersecurity. My job for him or her or they, compared specifically, is my job is to make you, business owner, as defensible as possible so that you're not deemed negligent to your end user or client. AKA, if you get sued, which is what their big fear, AKA, if your client wants to know what you're doing is appropriate and doing it to the best of their intention, we have the job to prove that via reporting, via whatever, somehow proving that we're doing this for them so that they can be, hey, this guy is defending me. I don't have to worry about my users being mad and upset with me and that I'm being negligent to them. This is important in the real estate space, in the financial sector, in the medical sector. All those are dealing with a lot of people with a lot of private information. And I'm just picking those 3. There's so many more out there. But if a user of theirs says, hey, I was in your center, I swiped my credit card, and they're telling me that it got hacked from your place, I'm going to sue you. They come to you and say, this is what happened. Like, nope, wasn't with us because we've done this, this, and this. And from this reporting, nothing has been shown coming in or out. He is a liar or he ended up getting hit somewhere else. It was not us. You being able to do that for your client is more important than any other tool that's out there known to man. And that's what I would close out with that.
It's an interesting point, interesting way to look at it. Yeah, that's one of those drop the mic statements there, Paco. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to look at it. We, Yeah, because in one of the mistakes that everyone made, I corrected a client on this the other day. Is you like he said, yeah, because you're making sure I don't get hacked. I said, no, I'm not. I'm making sure that it's harder for you to get hacked, right? I said that is my job, is to do the best I can to secure your network. I can never guarantee you that what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. I just can't. It's too many ways out there. I said my job is to make it harder for anyone to get in, right? So it's kind of, and I always use the house scenario. You have a front door, so your first step is to close the door. Then you lock the door, right? You put your chain on or put your second lock, whatever. Then you put your alarm system on,
Then you put the bars
and
on the
then
window.
and put the bars on your window, right? All of those things, you know, these are just additional ways to protect you from someone coming in. And the hope is this, right? I use this analogy. If a thief comes on a block and they can see everyone's house, right? And you've got a sign out to say you have this alarm and your door is closed and your door is locked, they're going to think a little bit, they're going to think a little more about trying to enter your house than the guy across the street from you whose door is wide open and no cars are in the driveway and they've just left, right? So that is that's how I look at it, as our job is to basically protect, do our best to protect the client from having incidents. But
Or
I get
themselves.
what you're saying, and say it again, or
Or
and from
themselves.
themselves, definitely, definitely for themselves. But I get what you're saying, and it's definitely a interesting way to look at it. I might have to apply that logic you just used, that line you just used. But so I think we've kind of like beat this to death. I don't necessarily, and again, we both we talk a little bit about the tools we use and we don't, and this is not necessarily to promote one tool over another. So that's why I purposely didn't necessarily go and say, well, what do you use? But I am going to say this. You and I have had a lot of conversations where I have been fighting you tooth and nail on something, and I'm just going to admit it that I've come
Tooth and
around now.
nail, my friend. You
Tooth
thought I
and
was a
nail.
madman. You thought I was a madman when I ended up getting rid of my antivirus before for at the time for the solution that we're using now. Now, let alone of what ProdigyTeks is doing now. You
Well, I
thought I
thought you was a
was.
madman when you went to the solution before, but anyway.
Well, that's also true too. But the point is that I think that you didn't even think I'm off the rocker for what we're doing now, but I think it's starting to shape up a lot better than what we thought it was. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I've done my research, I've done my homework, and I'm becoming a believer.
And for those
I'm
that are
becoming
interested
a
in what
member of
we're
the cult.
doing, just ask John Dubinsky in the Facebook group for the MSP Unplugged online community. He'll tell you what we're doing.
Right. But yeah, so it is definitely another way to look at things, and something that I'm coming around to, that it makes more sense for me, because again, the whole goal in all of this is simplification, right? We're still not, I remember one of the shows I was on of back when Jeff was the host, and we talked about that single pane of glass. We had this long conversation about
There's a
getting on
single pane
single.
in the
Yeah. And it doesn't exist. But the goal is to reduce as many glasses as you can, right? And still be as effective, as as responsive, and be able to still deliver the quality of service that you want to deliver to your clients. And it's funny when I'm talking, like I'm rewriting a job description now for one of my techs is going to be leaving in September. So I have to, I'm rewriting the job description for that person, and the current tech is helping me rewrite this. And one of the things he said was, one of the things we didn't talk about was how many different things each morning we got to check, right? Like how many things I got to make sure is right throughout the day, or check for alerts, or check for this. And it opens your eyes when you realize how many places you have to go. And which is why we all scream for that one pane of glass. But if you can just eliminate some of those pains and still get all of the bases covered, that is, that will lead to more efficiency. And, it's something he stressed to me. You and I have been talking about it a lot. So that is something I want to leave everyone with, is as you're thinking about making changes or trying to improve efficiencies in your business, think less and not more.
Couldn't have said it any better than that, Mr. Smith.
So my friend, it's even though we talk all the time, we haven't been on camera, so it's good to get back with you. We will be doing this a little more frequently now. You'll see us. Paco's not so busy. He's one of the busiest men in Chicago, so I can rarely catch him anymore. So excuse me, I said Chicago. He's one of the busiest men all around. But anyway, Paco, any final words before we sign off here?
Nope, I think you said it best, my friend. Keep on keeping on.
All right, everyone. We do want to thank you for listening. We do invite you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. I am going to give a little amendment to that. We are doing the emerging vendor series at current, so you can also catch us on Wednesdays as well. We will be releasing episodes on Wednesdays of the ConnectWise Pitch It Emerging Vendor series that will go out throughout this summer.
And Thursday.
Right. And Thursday, because I said Tuesday and Thursday, and then I added Wednesday. Sorry. So for those of you out there who do catch us on video, we do us a favor. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You could also take us on the go with your favorite podcatcher apps. We are on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. For Paco and I, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.